Every year, the Turner Prize considers the work of 4 very different artists, and this time it's about as different as it gets, so it seems. Here is a sculpture by Paul Noble, a mother and child. In fact, their poo. Noble's fecal people inhabit a town called Nobson, which he invented back in the 1990s and has become an entire world. A strange world. It gets weirder and weirder. I've known Noble's work since the early 90s, and around that time he began to draw. And for the last 16 or 17 years, that's pretty much all he's done until he started making these new sculptures. And the drawings got more and more intense, more and more vivid, more and more complex. This palace here, in the middle of a lagoon, has little barges or gondolas, and their poos too, with saddles on them. The complexity of Noble's work and its concentration and its reliance on what seem very old-fashioned means, just a man with a pencil and a great deal of paper and a lot of time, is very compelling, and I enjoy it enormously. If there's a kind of problem with it, I think it's to do with how closed off that world is. Even though these are very airy, vast landscapes, I kind of begin to wonder where it's all going. If Paul Noble's work seems obsessive, almost a bit mad, Luke Fowler's film about the anti-psychiatrist RD Laing is about real madness, madness and sanity, and the relationship between schizophrenia and society. It's the 3rd film that Fowler has made about Laing, and it's very long, a full 90 minutes. And within it, archive footage of Laing alongside some of the patients and sufferers of schizophrenia. And the whole film is, in a way, a kind of deliberation on Lang's own sanity, his bouts of alcoholism, his behavior on TV chat shows, even his album of songs and his poems. It's very, very compelling. If I got a problem with it, it's a problem of form. You wonder if it's too long. You really get frustrated wanting to see more of Laing. I guess you could sit at home and watch hours of footage on YouTube, all those things that are floating around on the internet. And this is a kind of condensation of a lot of that. It's extremely well edited, it's extremely well put together, and the whole film flows and the footage weaves in and out, and you do get a sense of what it's like to be mildly unhinged, if not actually mentally ill. Spartacus Chetwynd is the first performance artist ever to have been in the Turner Prize. A big surprise, really, except that performance has had a real resurgence over the last decade. And there's this kind of nasty, medieval craziness. Craziness is everywhere in this year's Turner Prize, going on all around us on the walls and in the performances themselves. Some of Chetwynd's performances are like medieval morality plays. I watched a performance earlier today in which there was the sort of tale of Barabbas being enacted by little dolls. But there is something very joyous and liberating about what she does, which she also sees as a kind of critique of society and social morals. Being in a Spartacus Chetwynd performance with all the weird clothes, the loud music, the strange semi-sexual atmosphere is a bit like a lot of the clubs I go to. And here is a kind of mandrake root golem that seem to be in charge of everything. There is something very pagan about the work, and it's very funny. Chetwynd's work is enormously engaging and a little bit threatening, but threatening in the way of a Punch and Judy show. The audience becomes almost part of it. You get sucked into what she's doing with her gang, and I enjoy that very much, but that's because I'm a bit of a performer myself. Elizabeth Price's film is all about a disastrous fire in a Manchester Woolworths in the late 1970s, in which I think 10 people died. This forms the core of a work which also mixes in the music of the Shangri-Las, dancing girl bands, and a long section all about church architecture. Somehow she pulls it all together, the mixture of found footage, computerized image making, and music, pace and rhythm. It's really a strange experience looking at this work. On the one hand, is extremely exhilarating, the power of the music and the cutting of all the footage, and at the same time the subject matter ends up being about actual death. You see someone waving from a window in the Woolworths store, unable to leave when the smoke is billowing around them, and then you see the same arm gesture made by a member of the Shangri-Las singing on stage. Very difficult to reconcile all the opposing elements in Price's work. And although she uses very volatile subject matter, it's all treated in a very deadpan and cool kind of way. Chetwynd's rumbustious performances and ramshackle sets, Price's precision, Paul Noble's scatological obsessiveness, and Luke Fowler's longer and very sustained reflectiveness make for what I think is probably the toughest call Turner Prize that I can remember. Each of these artists deserve to be here in very different ways. Yet there are connecting themes: sanity, society, what it means to be an artist, how far you can push what you're doing. Perhaps that's a theme that's here every time. I guess you want to know who I think ought to win, and I'm not sure I know. I don't know.